High cholesterol is something that is mostly determined by our livers, and it's probably programmed as a combination of genetics and early exposure to environmental factors, including diet. But the really important feature is that once our cholesterol is high in adult life, although it's very important to address it using lifestyle modification, not least diet, weight optimization, alcohol reduction, exercise, you really can't change it by more than a few percent, perhaps 10 to 15% by those interventions. So patients who are particularly high risk, and we can talk about that in a minute, there are now a range of very well tolerated and effective medications to treat elevated plasma cholesterol. So really, I think the key message is that there are things that we can do in terms of lifestyle intervention, but diet in particular is not the be all and end all in determining an adult's cholesterol level. So one of the things that's been recognized for a long time is that elevated cholesterol, in particular the so-called bad cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and in particular a risk of heart attack. And that matters because in particular in Western societies, around a third of us will die of a cardiovascular disease in the full course of a lifetime. And indeed, what used to be a Western problem is now becoming an international challenge that includes Asia, that includes India in particular, and China. So these are big problems that are very much lifestyle associated. So the effects of diet on cholesterol are not entirely straightforward. And certainly it's not the case that by eating cholesterol, your plasma cholesterol will go up, or by reducing dietary cholesterol alone, your cholesterol will go down. And the reason for that is that most of the cholesterol in our blood is not from a dietary source, but is made by the liver. Now, that's not to say that the liver is entirely autonomous. It can be influenced in turn by what we eat, and in particular saturated fats put up bad cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and reduce the HDL cholesterol. But it's not a straightforward relationship. The diets that we know are good for cardiovascular disease, they're proven in terms of clinical trial outcomes, relate really to Mediterranean type diets. So diets that are rich in fresh food, vegetables, tomatoes, fish, lean meats, where the fats are monounsaturated olive oil type fats and not saturated fats that are associated with meats. So those sorts of Mediterranean style diets can easily be identified. And I think when patients ask me about diet, one of the very important factors is that you need to adopt a diet which you're going to enjoy. It needs to be a diet that you can live with. And so there may be a little bit of palate retraining involved, but broadly shifting towards low saturated fat, low carbohydrate diets that will reduce caloric intake and shift towards a diet of proven benefit. Well, the mainstay is, or the mainstays are Mediterranean type diet where possible, regular aerobic exercise, healthy sleep hygiene. All of these things we increasingly recognize contribute to cardiovascular health generally. The specific interventions that one can make for cholesterol management are relatively limited. you can only reduce your plasma cholesterol by about 10, maximum 15% through dietary intervention. But that's not to say, very emphatically, that's not to say that the dietary interventions are not important, because measuring the plasma cholesterol is not the sole indicator of dietary health. So since the 1990s, really, there have been an increasing array of treatments to target plasma cholesterol. The point I would like to make, I think, is that the patients, the individuals who have most to benefit from lowering cholesterol are those people who have the highest risk. So when we think about plasma cholesterol, we don't think about it in isolation. It's not just the number. It involves considerations around the patient's general health and well-being. Are we in the domain of so-called secondary prevention, where that person's already had a heart attack, or in primary prevention, where we're trying to stop the first heart attack? What are the other key factors? What about the patient's family history, their blood pressure? Do they have diabetes? Do they smoke? So trying to factor all of those things in together to make judgments in the round about what are the most likely beneficial interventions, and to equip the patient to make decisions about how they would like to proceed, what's their attitude to risk, how motivated are they to change lifestyle, what can they, what is their tolerance level for medical intervention versus lifestyle intervention. And all of these things feed into the way that we should approach this, but provided the patient has sufficient accurate information, most patients can make very good and informed decisions.